Wakata ya Papa John John Marjani Mama.
The threat of my pain is Excellency. John Mama. John Mama.
Omwankasa esse so mo ba ban mu a awon to baba Ghana and then the yenim say omo
Wakata ya Papa John Marjani Mama.
The threat of my pain is Excellency. John Mama. John Mama.
Omwankasa esse so mo ba ban mu a awon to baba Ghana and then the yenim say omo chiro mu a na omo akwachi MPP ni chino yenchino na sana omo yese nyina no ye omo yese nyina no omo ankasa omo echiguo omo yese nyina no omo echi eguo wo chi obi se wabo aban na oman no ka 50 million 5 million 10 million and the minority focus na mo threaten mo beti omo obi a waye minister da na wo si wakosa ni bibi na mo threaten sana mo ankasa within 1 year GoldBod nkwa 22 billion cedis na why na esesa ye di proye ata ye ehye no abaya ama Ghana ase sika elusi sika kese sei why between MPP ni NDC why ena ebo omanika na essence omu kra aban tumi enti akoban se omu di tumi no eye dia omu pese omu ye ndi dia me se eni se majority muma kwan na GoldBod 22 billion ekano parliament bia yenka wasem GoldBod yesremu enya atemdidie mumbe yimano na ekano mutumutan amabaka GoldBod mabaka mutumutan wetua gano Ghana sika enya na yeka enya minority na yeka o IMF 4 and
Wakata ya Papa John Marjani Mama.
The threat of my pain is Excellency. John Mama. John Mama.
Bank of Ghana Governor Mr. Isiama and the CEO of Ghana GoldBod, Sammy Gyamfi, are committing serious crime. Nobody is talking about it. If say NPP ni payini na other committees are offenses na ankaye ni wa ha ye be wundia the NDC for edebe no ye na yo Ghana ha na NDC for e ma Ghana for tiase say the finance minister Kinofoliata abo Ghana krono esma soldiers eko ready Kinofoliata fie in search of trap krono sikana Kinofoliata boy. But maybe so, the Bank of Ghana governor, the whole Bank of Ghana governor, any the CEO of Ghana GoldBod, any Ghana auditors are committing serious crime. Ghana pay because the Bank of Ghana governor, no, any the GoldBod CEO, no, I am paying for what NDC. Nobody has the right to say anything about it. Yawa Ghana ha in a Ghana Parliament asserted the Public Accounts Committee. The Accounts Committee was chaired by Parliament. We a committee almost say in penny form that state-owned enterprises no. Afibiala omoba no mo bechere say sika ye de ma wo no say e na me de ye e fa so say na ba ho e ka say e na ba ho the whole Bank of Ghana governor only me say be work for no and answer say be audit aja wrongly it is tantamount to sin and bakwe see a jail no e wo Ghana ha. Mr. Isiama, the Bank of Ghana governor, equal public accounts committee, Emma, Okokachre parliament for the whole Ghana beer shell, we are selling saying nation say Bank of the GoldBod CEO, you are Sammy Gyamfi down. Eboka 200 million. Now Sammy Gyamfi making a lot of profit indeed. That 200 million was nothing. First, the Bank of Ghana governor provided audit from Ghana auditors. Emma Bibia shows Sammy Gyamfi Eboka 200 million. Fast forward, Sammy Gyamfi so by admitting say a canon no boy now on to gold no the comma Bank of Ghana governor. Just look at the twist. Sammy Gyamfi so by the car say or making a lot of profit, but a car 200 million now good boy the boy no crown no boy. Or no they say I buy this scam and say on to gold no into no to another comma Bank of Ghana governor. Now Bank of Ghana governor so keep people no in their reserve. In the Bank of Ghana governor the boss aka no nye ono Sammy Gyamfi. Fast forward in 2026, the IMF report, the International Monetary Fund IMF report, so state to say the CEO of Ghana GoldBod, you Sammy Gyamfi down, and in summer the whole Bank of Ghana governor, Mr. Isiama, ebe catch Ghana for say, boka with 200 million na a car CEO of Ghana GoldBod. Sammy Gyamfi any Isiama boy no 1.7 billion US dollars. Nobody is saying anything about it. Ghana no it is tantamount to imprisonment. It may be so that buying a Ghana parliament and that buying a Ghana president ebe someone Isiama any the CEO of Ghana GoldBod Ghana ha and Ministry of Health Mr. Akano Edano minister Ebeka say ope 60 million Ghana cedis security Ebeka say ope 6 billion ama Ghana or their or the local to nurses and your mark Ghana hospitals Momako Yejima Wunya. Your Ghana ha Emma free SHS abayno end to main finance Emma Woko schools are in Jania NDC for the man Kolani Dino is even tantamount to sickness or no crampono in Kolano Huano and abayno end to main provided Emma one entity Ghana GoldBod Sammy Gyamfi Dano in 2025 just 1 year GoldBod to me making losses of 1.7 billion US dollars. Wabla Ghana parliamentarians, Wabla Ghana president, and Ghana peniophobia and someone almost said they should come and account for the losses that GoldBod and Bank of Ghana governor they are claiming and the IMF report that 1.7 billion US dollars. Just one entity, 1.7 billion US dollars. Yene Ghana ha Shendia Sammy Gyamfi Ediye Madam Tonoku na maybe so 1.7 billion US dollars no can employ a lot of people in Ghana. It can create a lot of developmental projects, but I'm say NDC4 are the majority in parliament. They have their numbers in parliament in Tino. They are not doing anything about it. Now maybe so Ghana Benufono were they elected to cause damages? Were they elected to finance themselves? Were they elected to their advantage? And I said they are there to serve the people first. The Ghana auditors and the CEO of Ghana GoldBod, together with the Bank of Ghana governor, should be held accountable. They should be imprisoned. They should have a severe punishment.
His Excellency John Mama. His Excellency John Mama. John Mama.
Omwankasa esse so mo ba ban mu a awon to baba Ghana and then the yenim ni say omo chire mu a na omo akwachi MPP ni chino yenchino na sana omo yese nyina no ye omo yese nyina no omo ankasa omo echi guo omo yese nyina no omo echi eguo wo chi obi se wabo aban na oman no ka 50 million 5 million 10 million and the minority focus na mo threaten mo be chi omo obi a waye minister da na wo si wakosa ni bibi na mo threaten sana mo ankasa within 1 year GoldBod nkwa 22 billion cedis. Now why na esesa ye di proye ata ye ehye no abaya ama Ghana ase sika elusi sika kese sei why between MPP ni NDC why na ebo oman ne ka na essence omo kura aban tumi enti akoban se omo di tumi no eye dia omo pese omo ye ndi dia me se and say majority mo makwan na GoldBod 22 billion ekano parliament bia yenka wasem GoldBod yesremu enye atemdidie mo mbeyi mano na ekano mututan a mabaka GoldBod mabaka muchu mutai wetia Ghana Ghana sika
His Excellency John Mama. John Mama.
Good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen of the press. This morning we've called you here on a very short notice. We thank you for coming. We're here to discuss matters that border on the state of our country. GoldBod and the perils it poses to our country's economy. The caucus would like to make it very clear. We did not call you here to trade insults. We called you here because Ghanaians deserve the truth about GoldBod. Plain truth in plain language. And on behalf of the caucus, I would want to share with you something you've been waiting for. A week ago, the chief executive of GoldBod went on social media space. He said the concerns of the caucus come from bitterness. He called us bitter. He said he could hear hatred in our voice. But we have this to say to him and the institution he heads. We are concerned for our country, and there is a difference. The head of an institution accused of losing 22 billion Ghana cedis plus in 1 year should not be talking about our tone. He should be talking about his leisure. Ghanaians can see exactly where the weakness lies. According to the GoldBod, other voices can be taken seriously, not ours. But we want to make it clear. Nothing said by us is personal. Every figure we are about to give you comes from the IMF. It came from their own report on Ghana, published this very month. If IMF facts sound personal to the GoldBod and its officials, the problem is not ours. The problem is what the facts say. Government has not publicly objected to the findings in the report. Ladies and gentlemen, let me open this by setting the record straight, because 1.7 billion losses do not belong buried in a footnote. It belongs in the open, where the people who own it can see. And let us be clear about what that figure is. It is not accounting fiction. It is not a rounding error. It is a real loss generated from the activities of GoldBod, sitting on the books of Bank of Ghana, generated entirely by the gold purchasing and gold trading operations carried out by GoldBod, the sole institution Parliament mandated to buy, sell, weigh, grade, assay, value and export our gold. The IMF has already told the country where this loss comes from. In its own words, the losses, quote, are a combination of service and assay fees paid to GoldBod, discount on gold sold to off-takers, into bracket exporters, and most importantly, exchange rate losses from the spread between Forex Bureau rate paid to purchase gold and the CD reference rate used for BOG accounting, end quote. This can be found in
signatory losses, not on procurement breaches or breaches of the Public Financial Management Act. Not a single adverse finding in the report of the Auditor General on accounts for the year 2025. The media, I humbly submit, must not condone and entertain the deliberate propagation of lies in the face of glaring evidence to the contrary. Now, friends from the media, after adducing this indisputable of the Auditor General to puncture the lie that the GoldBod made losses in 2025, Afenyo-Markin and his associates quickly abandoned this line of attack and have now sought refuge in the recently published IMF report on the Bank of Ghana's standard credit facility, in which the IMF reported that the Bank of Ghana recorded a loss of $1.7 billion under its domestic gold purchase program in 2025. Their position has now conveniently changed from the old false narrative that the GoldBod made losses to the new false narrative, which is that the GoldBod is responsible for losses incurred by the Bank of Ghana under the domestic gold purchase program. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing could be further from the truth. First, nowhere in the under-referenced IMF reports is GoldBod accused by the IMF as having caused the losses reported to have been incurred by the Bank of Ghana under the domestic gold purchase program. I challenge Afenyo-Markin to point to any page, paragraph, sentence, phrase, or punctuation mark in the said reference reports of the IMF where the GoldBod was accused by the IMF as the entity responsible for losses incurred by the Bank of Ghana. In summary, ladies and gentlemen, what the IMF report states is that Bank of Ghana incurred losses through the sale of gold under its domestic gold purchase program of $400 million in the year 2024 and $1.7 billion in the year 2025. And that the 2025 loss of $1.7 billion was as a result of, I'm quoting the IMF verbatim, the scaling up of the domestic gold purchase program, not incompetence or mismanagement. According to the IMF, that loss was as a result of the scaling up, the expansion of the program. The IMF also stated that these accounting losses partly reflect valuation effects. In particularizing what the IMF considers to be components of this loss, the IMF listed three things, which included fees paid to the GoldBod under the domestic gold purchase program. This is the true context within which the name of the GoldBod featured relative to losses under the DGPP in the other reference IMF reports. So I want to read the relevant portions of that report, because most of the times they come in the media and they say the IMF has said that GoldBod has made a loss of 1.7 billion, and nobody questions them to point out which part of the IMF report said that. They say that the IMF says that GoldBod is the reason for the loss, and nobody questions them to provide the proof. And we are all talking about IMF report, IMF report. The fact checkers must get to work. What does this IMF report say? Now, let's first of all start with the seat review on the ECF, that report published by the IMF just a few weeks ago. And the provision in that report on domestic gold purchase program can be found on page 27, paragraph 50. This is what the IMF said. The domestic gold purchase program weighed on the financial sustainability of the BOG. The DGPP, which is the short form of domestic gold purchase program, on which the BOG relied to accumulate reserves to intermediate effects to the private sector has generated losses of 22 billion, which is 1.5% of GDP in 2025. A government cost-sharing agreement at end 2025 involving the transfer of bonds with a par value of 5 billion cedis in March 2026 resulted in the breach of the ceiling on BOG claims on the central government and public entities at the end of December 2025 and end March 2026. In July 2026, the BOG GoldBod and the government signed a memorandum of understanding formalizing the transfer of the domestic gold purchase program activities from the BOG to GoldBod and eliminating related BOG quasi-fiscal risk. An external auditing firm is conducting a special audit of the domestic gold purchase program from its inception, and the inception is 2021, whose results should be available in 2026 Q3. Domestic gold purchase program related losses coupled with high cost of open market operations and exchange rate valuation losses resulting from cedi appreciation worsened the BOG's negative equity position to 6.7% of GDP. This is what they said about domestic gold purchase program. Nowhere in this report is GoldBod accused as having caused any loss incurred by Bank of Ghana. The second and last is the IMF report on selected issues, which was published on the 4th of August. Paragraph 13 of that report speaks about the domestic gold purchase program, and that is what it says. DGPP operations have generated significant losses for BOG. Losses in 2024. So if you are watching me, you should be asking yourself whether there was GoldBod in 2024. Losses in 2024 were equivalent to almost $400 million, 0.5% of GDP, 1/3 of which were related to gold for oil. In 2025, the significant scaling up of domestic gold purchase operations led to losses of over $1.7 billion. So the IMF tells you what led to the loss. So they are saying the significant scaling up of the program. It is there, black and white. Then, almost entirely related to G4R Dory purchases. This amounted to a loss of 17% of the value of Dory gold sold by the BOG. Losses accrued on gold trace are a combination of service. This was the only reference to the GoldBod here. So listen, losses accrued on gold trace are a combination of service and asset fees paid to GoldBod, discounts on gold sold to off-takers, and most importantly, exchange rate losses from the spread between Forest Bureau rates paid to purchase gold and the cedi reference rate used for BOG accounting. Survey data suggests that Ghanaian ASGM prices are among the highest in the region. These accounting losses partly reflect valuation effects rather than economic cost. Blah, blah, blah. These are the relevant portions. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the words of the IMF. Not to suggest that the words of the IMF are sacrosanct, but it is important for us not to attribute to the IMF what they have not said. They have not said that the GoldBod is the one that caused the Bank of Ghana to lose $1.7 billion, as I have clearly demonstrated to you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, aside the fact that the new false narrative of Afenyo-Markin grossly misrepresents the IMF's of Ghana under the domestic gold purchase program is bereft of fact and common sense. This fallacy is anchored on the claim that, number one, the Ghana Gold Board participated in the purchase and aggregation of Ghana under the Domestic Gold Purchase Program in 2025. Therefore, Ghana Gold Board is responsible for losses under the program. This is their logic. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Gold Board's role under the Domestic Gold Purchase Program in 2025 was simply a continuation of the inherited role of the defunct PMMC under the Gold Purchase Agreement with the Bank of Ghana, signed in September 2023, under which the PMMC served as a gold buying agent for the BOD. And today I brought a copy of that Gold Purchase Agreement that the PMMC signed with the Bank of Ghana in September 2023, when Sammy Gyamfi was National Communications Officer for the NDC in opposition. This buying agent role was limited to only the purchase of gold for the Bank of Ghana on agreed terms. The PMMC or Gold Board fulfilled this obligation in strict accordance with these obligations under the 2023 Gold Purchase Agreement and fully accounted for all advances it was given in 2025, a total of about 133 billion Ghana cedis. That was given to PMMC, later became Gold Board, to buy gold as a buying agent, fully accounted for 133 billion Ghana cedis. The PMMC Gold Board and Gold Board had no role in the sale of gold by the Bank of Ghana under the Domestic Gold Purchase Program. It was not a signatory to any offtake agreements under the Domestic Gold Purchase Program. Neither was it involved in determining selling prices or sale terms. In commodity trading, profit is simply a function of selling price minus cost. The IMF states that the reported losses stem from the sale of gold by the Bank of Ghana, not the sale of gold by the PMMC. If the PMMC, which later became Gold Board, had no role in the sale of gold it purchased, then it cannot be said to be responsible for losses incurred through the sale of gold by the BOG, simply because it bought gold as a buying agent and was paid fees. In any case, the under reference IMF report says that the BOG incurred a loss of $400 million from gold sales under the Domestic Gold Purchase Program in the year 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, there was no Gold Board in the year 2024. Who then caused that loss? Can Afenyo-Markin answer this simple question? If we are to accept his argument that losses under Domestic Gold Purchase Program are attributable to buying agents, then is Afenyo-Markin saying that buying agents in 2024 caused the loss of $400 million? And those buying agents were the PMMC and a private company called Resafire. So why are they not blaming PMMC and Resafire for causing $400 million loss to the Bank of Ghana? Also, in 2025, the Bank of Ghana used a private aggregator called Resafire to buy and aggregate gold under the Domestic Gold Purchase Program from January to May 20. Services rendered by the National Assembly, PMNC, or if you like, GoldBod, and serves as IGF for the institution. All gold exporters, and I repeat, all gold exporters between 2022 and 2025, whether private or public, and for the public institutions, Bank of Ghana, Minerals Income Investment Fund, who were also implementing a gold for forex program. All these people, private gold exporters, Indians, Chinese, Ghanaians, all of them paid the same asset fee of 0.258% to the National Assembly because it was approved by Parliament under the Fees and Charges Act. And assaying gold is not free. It costs us money, consumables, workers, machines to assay gold. And that is why we must be paid an assay fee. It is not free money. Let's understand that. The service fee of 0.5% paid the GoldBod in 2025 was also the same fee paid the PMMC and all other aggregators of the Bank of Ghana under the Domestic Gold Purchase Program from 2022 to 2025. This fee is also not free money. As the name suggests, the Bank of Ghana agreed to pay a service fee in the year 2023 to all its aggregators, PMMC and Resafire, to cover the cost of transportation, security, insurance, and smelting losses incurred through the aggregation of gold from the 13 mining regions of Ghana for the Bank of Ghana by its buying agents. And I will give you incontrovertible evidence to that effect. This is their own agreement. They marked it confidential. I don't see why they should have marked this September 2023 gold purchase agreement as confidential. It's a matter of public interest. So I will show you what that so-called service fee is all about and whether or not it is Sammy Gyamfi who has come to impose a service fee on Bank of Ghana, which has now caused the Bank of Ghana to incur losses. This is page 10 of that agreement, and if you need a copy, I'll give you a copy. And if you look at clause 6.3, subclause 13, in fact, let me start from subclause 12. Buyer, the buyer is Bank of Ghana, and the agent is PMMC. Buyer shall bear the cost of assay, which shall be the prevailing rate of assaying Dory gold. The assay invoice shall be submitted to the buyer on the first week of every month for payment. 13. Buyer shall bear the buying agent service charge. The buying agent service charge into bracket operational cost of 0.5% of the utilized portion of advance funds for acting as buying agent or buyer, unless otherwise agreed in writing between the parties. The service charge or fee shall cater for logistics and transport cost, insurance, security, smelting loss, and trade margins. The service charge or fee shall be reviewed annually by both parties as market conditions changes. This is in the 2023 gold purchase agreement. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if the GoldBod is to blame for losses incurred by the Bank of Ghana in 2025 because it was paid a legitimate fee for its services, who then caused the losses of the Bank of Ghana in 2022, 2023, and 2024 under the Domestic Gold Purchase Program? Means that all the people the Bank of Ghana paid fees to, the same fee, they caused the loss. That is what they are saying. Was it the PMMC or the Resafire? Afenyo-Markin should answer this question too. Is he saying that losses incurred by MEF in their gold trade or any other private gold exporter is attributable to the PMMC or GoldBod because we charge and we're paid a lawful fee approved by Parliament for our asset fees. Then we should be charging Parliament rather for causing the loss because Parliament approved the fees. Ladies and gentlemen, our losses incurred by GoldBod blamed on its license buying companies because they are paid a margin of 12.75% on the producer price. This same buying agent arrangement between Bank of Ghana, Red Sapphire, PMMC, GoldBod is the same arrangement that governs how cocoa is purchased. And what is that arrangement? GoldBod gives seed money to license buying companies that go and buy cocoa. And when you bring the cocoa, I will pay you a margin of 12.75%. So it means that every year when GoldBod declares losses, we should blame the losses on license buying companies because they will pay fees. That is the paucity of reasoning being canvassed by Afenyo-Markin and his followers. Is it right for an exporter or trader or business who incur, like media houses, you have businesses, you have service providers, you have agents who you pay fees, your technicians, your plumbers. The fee you pay is part of your cost, and you are therefore supposed to ensure that your revenue, or if you are trading a commodity, your selling price is enough to cater your cost. If you don't do that and you get a loss, you don't blame your plumber or your technician or your service providers who performed services and were paid fees for their services as a reason for your loss. Where in the world is one body corporate blamed for accounting losses incurred by another independent, separate and distinct body corporate without any evidentiary basis? Ladies and gentlemen, the IMF says that reported losses under the domestic gold purchase program in 2025 largely stem from the spread between Forex Bureau rate paid to purchase gold and the CD reference rate used for BOG's accounting. And that since GoldBod, MPP says, not the MPP, the Afenyo-Markin, says because GoldBod was the one buying the gold, then GoldBod should be blamed because of the gap between the Forex Bureau rate and the Bank of Ghana rate. The answer is very simple. The September 2023 gold purchase agreement that I've shown you, which predates Sammy Gyamfi and the GoldBod in this conversation, provides for the price and exchange rate at which gold is to be bought by PMMC and, for that matter, every buying agent. These are express prescriptions of the principle captured in a signed contract that predates the GoldBod. A buying agent cannot vary agreed terms in a written contract without consequences. Afenyo-Markin should tell Ghanaians at what price and exchange rate was gold bought by buying agents such as PMMC and Red Sapphire. And I'm going to publish that tomorrow. They were buying gold at exchange rates as high as 17 Ghana cedis in 2024. So when you agents were buying gold at 17 Ghana cedis to the dollar, because you had so mismanaged the economy that at some point you needed 16, 17 cedis to get a dollar. And that is the exchange rate at which you were buying gold. You are saying that PMMC was causing losses for the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana designed under the domestic gold purchase program that because they were in crisis and they needed foreign exchange, they will buy gold at the exchange rate. That gold has been bought since we started mining gold over a century ago. This is not the creation of GoldBod, which was established in April 2025. Then the fourth claim under this new theory that, GoldBod has not made losses, but GoldBod is responsible for losses made by Bank of Ghana. They say that the reported domestic gold purchase program losses stems from GoldBod's trade model and that the program was implemented through the GoldBod in 2025. So GoldBod is responsible. Ladies and gentlemen, although the GoldBod was established in April 2025, it was not until March 2026 that it commenced the implementation of its trade model envisaged under the GoldBod Act. This is because the GoldBod received its revolving seed capital budgeted for it in the 2025 budget as late as 30th December 2025. Also, the GoldBod had to put in place the necessary institutional measures and systems before takeoff. The trade model implemented by the Bank of Ghana in the year 2025 which the IMF has reported on, was evidently the domestic good purchase program model. When did the domestic good purchase program become GoldBod's trade model? And how can the domestic good purchase program that the MPP in the past have given the credit, to Bawumia for, be said to be arising, losses under that program be said to be arising from a GoldBod model? When the GoldBod model only started in March 2026, because of what I've already explained, our seed capital coming as late as 30th December 2025, and the need for us to put in place the necessary institutional, systems and framework before takeoff. Then they make another claim in their press statement that the reported domestic good purchase program losses is partly caused by hidden offtake discounts determined by GoldBod. The answer is also very simple. As I've already explained, ladies and gentlemen, the PMMC or GoldBod was only a buying agent under the domestic good purchase program. Its role ended at buying gold. It had no role in selling gold or signing offtake agreements. Therefore, it could not determine offtake discounts. It must, however, be noted that offtake discounts are a standard feature of gold doré trades. The BOG did extremely well in 2025 in reducing offtake discounts from as high as 2.2% in 2024 under the MPP to 1.2% in 2025. This fact can be verified by anyone from the BOG, and this discount, offtake discount, cannot by any stretch of imagination be the reason for reported losses, because discounts are a standard feature for particularly the sale of doré gold, raw gold, anywhere in the world. You sell gold, if you're selling gold in its raw form, and even in its refined form, there is a discount. And you don't see that losses are as a result of that, unless you can show that the discounts were unreasonably high and not in conformity with industry practice. Now, other false claims that I'll deal with quickly and then I'll conclude. The GoldBod, the Afenyo-Markin says that the GoldBod has sold gold and made losses, and that no one should sell gold and make losses. When they turn gold boka, says those who recorded $400 million loss under domestic gold purchase program in 2024, according to the IMF they are quoting. And this is also coming from the same people under whose tenure another state institution, MEF, implemented the gold purchase program and recorded losses to the tune of over $90 million. Today, they want to give us lectures on gold trading. Ladies and gentlemen, I have news for them. We will not take moral lessons from the brothel. Then number two, they say, why has the Bank of Ghana pulled out of financing the GoldBod if GoldBod is not making losses? Number one, the Bank of Ghana has not pulled out from anything. The MPP government decided that it will run a program called Domestic Gold Purchase Program, which will be managed by the Bank of Ghana. And they designed that program in a certain way, which I will talk about it. President Mahama promised to reset Ghana, including the gold trade sector. And his reset is the GoldBod. The act has been passed and the GoldBod is ready for takeoff. And so this new GoldBod model, as envisioned under the GoldBod Act, is not anchored on Bank of Ghana financing GoldBod. The GoldBod has been given the powers under Section 18 of the GoldBod Act by Parliament to raise money for itself from the financial markets. And so if the GoldBod wants to assert that statutory mandate, and for that matter, the Bank of Ghana has to end what it was doing under the domestic gold purchase program, you don't look at that and say, oh, that means GoldBod was doing something wrong. I can tell you that as we speak, the IMF and the Bank of Ghana are all engaging GoldBod that they still want to be our fiscal agents under the GoldBod model, where they will be raising money for us as an intermediary. It is the GoldBod that is rather saying, no, we will do it ourselves. So that claim is not true. And then you hear him say that, oh, GoldBod was being paid some fees, and it is because of the noise they made that the fees were reduced. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I brought evidence here, and if you need the evidence, I'll give it to you. That evidence is a letter dated October 29, 2025, way before the MPP ever held a press conference on GoldBod or domestic gold purchase program in 2025. Because the first press conference they held in the aftermath of the IMF report on domestic gold purchase program was in December. If you recall, we were celebrating Christmas at the time, December 2025. But by October 29, 2025, the GoldBod and Bank of Ghana, through negotiations, had reduced the fees to 0.6. Does that mean there was something wrong? No. What it meant was that the GoldBod was more efficient in aggregating gold, that it didn't need 0.75%. We conceded upon request by Bank of Ghana that we could do with little and still achieve better results. And number two, the quantity of gold we're buying had gone up and gold prices has skyrocketed, and therefore even if we reduce our fees, we knew that we could still cater for ourselves. So that was an act of patriotism and not because of the noise of a rabble-rouser. Now, number four, and I'm wrapping up. They say, oh, GoldBod takes credit for the upside of the domestic gold purchase program, but the GoldBod does not take the blame for the downside. So we are being double standard. The GoldBod has not taken any credit for any upside of any domestic gold purchase program. We are saying that President Mohammed's vision in establishing the GoldBod, even though we did not begin the full implementation of that mandate in 2025, we were able to contribute substantially to the volume of gold that we aggregated as buying agent for the Bank of Ghana in ways that the PMMC, our antecedent, could never do and never did. And that was because of the effective aggregation system, the competitive pricing, and the other measures we introduced in 2025. And so we talk about the quantum of gold we were able to buy because of how we were able to plug leakages, intensify the fight against smuggling, reduce gold that was going out through informal channels and all that. That is what we talk about. And so let them get the facts correct. Then they talk about what commercial risk was GoldBod bearing under the domestic gold purchase program. Ladies and gentlemen, is it easy to be giving 133 billion Ghana cedis in a year, cash, bank transfer money, to buy gold in the market and not burn 1 cedi of that? Can our former board chairman of ECG, Afenyo-Markin, under whose tenure in 2024 the ECG recorded a loss of 8.2 billion, boast of such competence? The answer, I believe, should be obvious. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is the GoldBod's official position on this issue of domestic gold purchase program losses? Because somebody may get the impression that because we are defending ourselves against a lie peddled against us, then it means that we are saying, oh, Bank of Ghana is to blame, or we are throwing Bank of Ghana under the bus. No, that is not the case. The position of the GoldBod has been stated by my good self, my humble self, time without number, that the losses recorded by the Bank of Ghana under the domestic gold purchase program since inception, not just in 2025, is not because of mismanagement or incompetence by the current managers, but those losses are a product of policy design. It was the MPP that designed the domestic gold purchase program that way, that they will not pursue profits, but they will pursue foreign exchange, because at the time they had no access to the capital market to borrow on the Eurobond market and bring in dollars to show up, the currency. So they chose foreign exchange over profit by policy design. And that is why since 2021 that program never made profit. And that is why they announced in the year 2022 November that effective January 2023 they were going to buy gold at spot prices. It was the MPP that introduced spot gold purchases in Ghana. And I dare anybody to challenge me. Because before 2023, gold was bought by private individuals, foreigners and locals, and they bought it between 1% discount to 2% discount. But in desperation for gold, the then government decided that we will buy gold at spot price, and that is contained in this report by Graphic Online, dated November 2028, 2022, and attributed to the then Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, who announced the policy. Who buys good at spot price and yet seeks profit. So that was their policy design. It was not for profit, and that is why they never made profit. But as they made losses in the past under they will pay good for oil and all that, Ghanaians did not see any commensurate economic benefits. What we are saying is that in the case of the Bank of Ghana, yes, the loss may be bigger because according to the IMF, the program was scaled up, it was expanded. Not because somebody stole money or somebody was incompetent. But in this case, you see measurable, economic benefits. Unprecedented currency appreciation of 41%, which led to inflation coming down for 12 consecutive months. You saw a drop in the public debt by more than 100 billion Ghana cedis and significant savings to the government. That is what we are saying, that this was the price the Bank of Ghana had to pay under this program, poorly designed by the erstwhile government for the stability we enjoy. We are not saying that somebody at the Bank of Ghana has done anything wrong. So let's get that clear. So finally, ladies and gentlemen, there's been a call for a parliamentary probe, and I've already stated on public record that I'm waiting with bated breath for Afenyo-Markin's invitation. And I don't know why he's delaying and holding press conferences when, as minority leader, he can get the Public Accounts Committee to summon me tomorrow or today, and I will appear. I saw him dabbling in some confusion about standing orders of parliament and the fear that the majority may oppose a call for a probe into this matter. Well, I have, humility, reached out to the new majority leader in Parliament, Honorable James Agaga, and I pleaded with him that even if Afenyo delays in extending this invitation, he should extend the invitation to me. And I'm ready to come tomorrow. You don't need any special motion. You don't need any special order by the Speaker. Just get Public Accounts Committee to invite us. And come and sit down there and come and demonstrate to the whole nation where the GoldBod made losses or how the GoldBod is to blame for losses made by another institution. We are waiting for that. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I want to urge you, our friends in the media, in all humility, and the Ghanaian public, to hold Afenyo-Markin and others who make allegations about GoldBod losses to the strictest standard of proof, particularly in the light of the detailed facts I have placed before you today. Let me state that the persistent noise from people like him does not arise from any genuine quest for accountability or any sincere desire to interrogate the operations of the GoldBod. Rather, it is a part of a calculated smear campaign aimed at undermining the significant contribution GoldBod is making to the economic transformation agenda of President Mohammed's administration. The likes of Afenyo-Markin simply cannot reconcile themselves with the transformational work of GoldBod because they appreciate the important role it has played in the historic appreciation of the Ghana cedi and the significant strengthening of Ghana's international reserves, developments that are contributing to improved economic conditions for the Ghanaian people. Afenyo-Markin's continuing antics, and I want you to listen to me very carefully here. Afenyo-Markin continuing antics must therefore be seen for what they are: a desperate smear campaign by persons who have specialized in sophistry and political blackmail in pursuit of selfish ends. These are devious extortionists who will come at you with lies to tarnish your reputation in the hope that you will fold and settle for what they call, quote, compulsory arbitration and oil their palms. Well, this time around, they found their own target. The Ghanaian people deserve serious public discourse founded on facts, evidence, truth, and not endless recycling of falsehoods in the hope that repetition will lend them credibility and turn fiction to facts. GoldBod will remain focused on its mandate. We will continue to account transparently for our stewardship, and we will not be distracted from the important work of creating value for the Ghanaian people from the exploitation of the good resources of our beloved nation. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, thank you very much. Shall we have some silence, please? I need to remind you that this is a very formal function, so we normally do not entertain clapping or any form of noise from the audience, so please take note of it. After that exhaustive presentation, we'll delve straight into a question and answer session. Normally, this program would be over in an hour, but given the importance of the issue at hand, we are holding an extended version. So if you have any question, I would invite you now to come to the microphone on my left and state your name, which media house you represent, and limit yourself to one question in order that we are able to maximize the opportunities that we have. So if you have a question, please walk up to the microphone now, please.
Good morning. My name is Shadrach Odame Ejari, Metro TV. My question is one key goal of the GoldBod, I stand to be corrected, is to stop gold smuggling and formalize small-scale mining. Now, what concrete measures has the GoldBod put in place at entry point, especially when we have identified some porous entry borders and buying centers to ensure small-scale miners get fair prices? And how many metric tons have they been able to stop from being smuggled out since they started their operations? And we know there have been some arrests. If we can get some update on that.
Thank you very much, Odame. Please move to the microphone now if you have a question, so that we save time.
Good afternoon, fellow Ghanaians, and to Mr. Sammy Gyamfi and GoldBod.
No lengthy preambles. Go straight to one question.
There is this story, I think about last 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, in respect to an individual who purchased the gold, sold it to one aggregator, and another person came in saying that the gold was given to another person to sell to another person, which has created a whole lot of issues with the GoldBod. And this buyer or seller of gold or something, Raymond something. I want clarification on that and the next step into that. And respectfully, this is not a question. Now, Makola for nene kantamanto mano, especially Kumasi Jumkedit Yamano, Omon Teddy and Yeki King, Yentrets Muchi, Netana, and Afenyo-Markin or Cabro for Pano, and Audited, and Semu, Senya Beya, clarity will be made. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kamala Krisha, I work at TV3. About 2 questions for you. How do we take advantage of the record gold prices to generate meaningful fiscal revenue from the small-scale mining sector to support the development needs of the country? Then 2, semantics about the losses does not dispel the fact that there are losses. Shouldn't that be the concern? How is the GoldBod working to ensure that the amount that amounts to enough right on your books is not as recorded as of last year? And then the final one, a criticism is the model being used for the purchase of gold. Has that model changed this year? Why must we continue to provide discounts from a sector which we should see reaping its own windfalls?
I repeat the question.
The last one?
Yeah.
So I'm saying that the criticism is the model being used for the purchase of gold. How has that changed this year, and why must we continue to provide discounts from a sector which should have been reaping its own windfalls?
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, Ashford. So you'll be the fourth questioner. We'll take a final one after you, and then come.
Thank you very much. My name is Patrick Asford Wedu. I'm with Radio Gold. Mr. Sammy Gyamfi, I just want to find out from you. This is not the first time such allegation is coming up. And I want to find out if you feel jittery, you feel intimidated, and threatened, especially when the minority said the bill term is going to be high in other cases. What again will be the support that you will need from the general public, Ghanaians? I mean, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we'll take a final question in this round.
Good afternoon. My name is Romeo Tete, and I report for Ahonto 92.3 FM. My question is on the National Assay Laboratory. Will it independently verify every shipment of gold leaving Ghana, including gold produced by the large-scale mining companies? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Mr. Sammy Gyamfi will answer these questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The first question was about the mandate of the GoldBod to fight gold smuggling. The questioner wanted to know what we have done about this. A lot of the successes we have chalked so far in terms of the significant increase in ASM gold exports from just about 63 metric tons in the year 2025 to 104 metric tons in the year 2024, to 104 metric tons in the year 2025 is as a result of the tightening of anti-smuggling compliance measures by the GoldBod. As you may be aware, President Mahama tasked us to establish a special task force that will focus on the fight against smuggling. This task force has been put in place. The President himself inaugurated it sometime last year. And even though we have some numerical challenges at the moment, we currently have over 150 members of this task force deployed across the 30 mining regions of Ghana, who on a day-to-day basis patrol the gold market. They are also in touch with security officers manning various entry and exit points. We collaborate with a lot of these security agencies like NACOP, who have men at all entry and approved entry and exit points, and the Ghana Immigration. And through this collaboration, I'm sure, as you've seen in the media, we've made a lot of arrest and seizure from suspected gold smugglers. So these enhanced compliance measures have really helped us to increase the quantity of gold that is exported through formal channels. Since 2025 January to date, 170 metric tons of gold is what we've been able to mop up. There is nothing like that. Totally unprecedented. That is why Ghana today is not only the lead producer of gold in Africa, but number 6 in the world. And the difference this time around is that we are not just doing well on that ranking, but that good ranking is translating into repatriated FX, which is now supporting FX market stability. And until as I say, dollar abusua ubiye pibia wunyebino na dollar bo abafomwa ama Ghana foso yehon high. So that is what we have done in that area. There are different cases that are in court, and after the program we can give you the detailed updates because the cases are many, and due to time constraints I will not be able to give you update on all the individual cases. But thank you very much for your question. The second question I wanted to know about the McWood case, which is similar to the Dominic Bonsu case. And these are criminal cases being prosecuted by the GoldBod in the High Court. But we are not prosecuting these people because they have stolen GoldBod money. That is what you must understand. So in law we say that criminal offenses are acts in rem. Means they are acts against the rem, acts against the state. But several cases are what? Acts in personam, acts against a person. So when you see the prosecution of a crime, it doesn't mean that the one prosecuting is the one who has been offended. It means that the one being prosecuted has violated a law, the law of the country. So there are gold-related offenses spelled out under the GoldBod Act. And if you're a gold trader and you violate that, you'll be prosecuted, whether or not the money involved belongs to GoldBod. This is the statement of accounts between the GoldBod and its licensed aggregator Bower Rock for 1st January 2026 to 31st July 2026. It shows that Bower Rock doesn't owe GoldBod a peswa. Rather, we owed him and we have had to pay him. And as I speak, we owe him over 500 million Ghana cedis in program cost alone. So nobody has absconded with our money. Because when we give money to aggregators, the aggregators give us an advance payment guarantee from credible insurance companies and reinsurance companies. And in some cases, those that we call retrocessionaires. They are reinsurers of reinsurers. And these guarantees protect the funds we give them so that should anything happen, the GoldBod has a remedy. We've not had to make any claim under that guarantee because our aggregators have fully settled all the outstanding obligations. But if you go and take their money in breach of trading regulations and the GoldBod Act, and they lodge a complaint with us, it's like somebody going to the police station to lodge a complaint. We will investigate and we'll prosecute you. So you will hear that we are in court with some licensed traders because they have misappropriated or are unable to account for funds given them by an aggregator. It doesn't mean that the money belongs to the GoldBod. That is the explanation I have for you. Then, number 3, what is the GoldBod doing for Ghana to achieve revenue for development from record gold prices? Kluchi, the answer is the GoldBod. Without the GoldBod, this record high gold price we are currently witnessing would have eluded the country because the chunk of the gold would have left the shores of Ghana through informal channels, through the Togo border, through a Lubo border. The effects would not have come back, and the revenue that Ghana ought to have gotten would not have come. And that is why President Mahama established the GoldBod. You recall the gold mafia documentary of Al Jazeera, in which one foreigner called, is it Alistair Matthias, indicated that at the time in 2024, at the time before GoldBod, he could smuggle as much as $40 million of gold out of Ghana every month. And he claimed he was let me not talk about that. So, imagine now having an entity who has to buy all that gold, the sole buyer and the sole exporter. And all these people cannot do that. They all must come to the GoldBod. So don't be surprised when you see people attacking the GoldBod the way they do. Because those people have not stopped fighting us. They are not happy with the status quo. So they will contract agents and induce them to fight this patriotic cause. But let us be very alert to some of these things so that we are not hoodwinked. Now, semantics. How is the GoldBod working to prevent loss? Yes, nobody is saying that there's not been a loss. But be factual about it. You can't say that Cuckoo Board has incurred a loss and that loss should be blamed on TV3. And if TV3 issues a statement to say that we didn't make the loss, it is Cuckoo Board loss, then you say it is semantic. That is not semantics. Because a lot of public institutions and public officers in this country have been denigrated, their reputation damaged on the altar of lies. And because they did not rebut those lies in good time. And that is why we have decided not to wait for these repeated, tired, false narratives to become truth in the minds of the unsuspecting public. And we have to set the record straight. So it's very important that it is not semantics. And number 2, you say that what are we doing? The solution is a GoldBod model. You see, Bank of Ghana is a central bank. They were not established to trade gold. It is not their core function. They don't have a gold trading department like the GoldBod established by Mahama has. And that is why the nation builder in his vision saw the need to entrust this gold purchase arrangement to a specialized agency with specialized powers, specialized functions and resources, which would be called the GoldBod. So since March, we've been trading gold in the proper sense of gold trading. We don't only buy physical gold, we trade derivatives. And we trade gold 24/7. And so far, we've not made any losses. In trading, you can make profit, you can make losses. You just ensure that at the end of the financial year, the overall profit is more than your losses. But we have not even made any losses yet. If we had, we will concede. And we will not allow anybody to foist on us losses that we have not made. And so, you ask how different is our trade model from the domestic good purchase program. Number one, unlike domestic purchase program where good was bought based on live prices, which doesn't allow the buyer to plan and to know at any given time gold that is bought and the accurate cost price for the gold. The GoldBod has a new pricing mechanism. We use LBMA AM, LBMA PM, 2 pricing windows. That brings predictability and certainty. It allows us to know real-time gold that is bought for us and the accurate cost price so that you cannot increase the cost price. And the GoldBod is also allowed under the GANRAP to hedge. Bank of Ghana was not hedging gold. We engage in hedging. We engage in derivative trading on gold futures. You understand? So there are many things that we do. For example, in how Bank of Ghana sold gold. Bank of Ghana will get agents to buy gold for it, including PMMC GoldBod, within T+4. Once the gold got to Accra, it had to be exported. Whether or not the price had dropped or the exchange rate had appreciated, they will export because their focus for that program was bring the FX in because the nation was in crisis. But under the GoldBod, we don't do that. We can give you gold, and for 1 year, we will not fix the price. Our offtake agreements, you can come and see, provides for that. We can give you gold, take 85% of the prevailing value, and defer price fixing for up to a year, which we can even renew. We can sell gold to you even before we deliver the gold to you. We call it sales in advance of shipment. And we can sell gold upon shipment. All these mechanisms were not present in the actual domestic gold purchase program. And that is why President Mahama established GoldBod, and that is why in March 2026 we have now begun the full implementation of this mandate. So you can be rest assured that the same challenges that plagued the domestic gold purchase program and led to recurring losses from 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025 will not be repeated under this new GoldBod model. Then I believe the final one is whether I'm jittery. Well, I believe you should know me better. My good brother Felix says something. He says politics is a contact sport. So when you are involved in politics, you are involved in boxing. You should be ready for tackles. You should be ready for punches. And some of us are vaccinated against political mischief. We've taken the vaccine, so we are not worried at all. But what I want to say is this. If the one under whose tenure has bought chairman as ECG, you know, where ECG recorded a loss of 8.2 billion, is not facing any onerous bail terms. And how can Sammy Gyamfi, under whose tenure the GoldBod has exported 170 tons of gold through former channels and brought into this country over 17 billion United States dollars in 1.5 years, face onerous bail terms? Under your tenure, not a gram of gold produced in Ghana was refined in Ghana. Today, over 9 metric tons just this year of gold we have bought refined in Ghana. We are changing the value addition story. So you see, such statements are reckless. They are what I call the fanciful efficiency of, you know, of a palm wine bar. You take it as comic relief. And it is very sad. You see, when we say this, he says we are not insulting him. This is somebody occupying a seat once occupied by the Venerable G.H. Mensah, the Venerable Papa Uzuankoma, or Seiche Mensah Bonsu. Look at the depth and the substance of these personalities. When they rose to speak on Parliament, look at the command they commanded across the aisle. And look at how this seat has now been so bastardized and depraved by a noisemaker who cannot even read and research and get his facts right. So I will go to prison in his brain, and I will have onerous bail terms in his brain. I'm not afraid of any intimidating tactics because we are serving Ghana in good conscience, and our resource and posterity will speak for us. Thank you very much.
Let me caution once again against applause. Can I have your attention, please? Can I have your attention, please? This is very much a formal program, so no noise or applause are permitted. If you are satisfied by the responses, do not show any emotion, lest they be picked up by the camera and distort the hearing of listeners and viewers. So please bear that in mind. Yes, Echo, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much. My name is Echo Moses. I correspond for Bloomberg. Honorable,
if I heard you right, the so-called losses are not attributable to GoldBod, but the inference attributable to Bank of Ghana. And with the knowledge of this trading thing, would you call those things losses per se, or what really would you call them? And then my second thing, would you think that will ease in the event now that the central bank has stopped seed financing? Would that losses be affected in any way, shape, or form? My second issue has to be the setup of GoldBod. She said that by the setup, you're supposed to raise your own money to run your own business. In comparison with Cocoa Board, they buy but sell the cocoa themselves. Does it mean that GoldBod is also then selling the gold itself? If it's not, is the Bank of Ghana the one selling? Therefore, then the excess losses and what have you comes in. A bit more clarity there would help us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll take 4 more questions in this session as well. Yes.
Good morning. Okay. Please, good morning. Salamat Kukwapinto. I'm with the Despite Media. My first question had to whether or not GoldBod is committed to, in a regular manner, publish its sales, purchases, export volumes, prices, and financial performances for public consumption. The second had to do with, based on his last comment, I wouldn't want to, but I want to find out from him that there is this argument on socials that Mr. Gyamfi here contributed hugely to the loss of NPP, and then for that matter, them being in opposition. And so whether or not he was appointed to GoldBod or not, some of these calculated attempts to thwart his work at GoldBod would come off, or to debt his person. So I want to find out from him how he would respond to some of these arguments.
I believe he answered that. Meles Inawe once famously said that politics is not a picnic in the park. He understands that fully. He has no bearing at all on his work. The very tall Hanan requires help to pull up the microphone. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess I'm the tallest in the room. Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And my name is, from EIB Network, my name is Abdul Hanan Adam. I am the innocent one. Minister, I want to find out from the GoldBod. There are arguments and suggestions everywhere that the turnaround that we are seeing at GoldBod is as a result of the institution buying gold from illegal miners or galamseyers. And the question always is, how do we trace this gold that we are buying and selling or exporting? So even though the institution had already indicated that it is finding it difficult to trace some of this gold, and arguments still come that majority of it is from galamseyers, how soon should we expect GoldBod to be able to come out with data actually giving us specific traces to where they are buying their gold? And my second question has to do with...
I'm afraid after this, I'm going to have to restrict all of you to one question. Our time is very fast spent already.
Okay, my second one has to do with regulation and operation. There are suggestions that the GoldBod should operate like the National Petroleum Authority in the oil sector, where it only regulates. And I want to find out from Mr. Sammy Gyamfi whether this is viable for his operation going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nanama, Mejidis Obeketri.
My name is Nkechi. Nana Meja Akunyeti. Okay. It's my question about land reclamation.
No reactions.
Land reclamation. And Chebiana who says Shaman Boy, GoldBod set 35 million Ghana land reclamation. And then an agreement on the defense ministry is signing. Yeah, and also there's amount involved. So my question is say the land Emma Miner say uncle to gold, no to gold, no. That's assassin say yeah, who bear the cost? State Jumana oil no, ye trace a kebi from the amount that the state gets from the miner, ye trace kebi free mu say ye de kwa koye land reclamation say nipa ba ko to gold ni be wi asaya asase no na fe state ni na ebe cost say GoldBod say 35 million Ghana cedis yen fan koye land reclamation be say me mu say ye minor no and also tua kana say state ni was obe cost because of say minor no etua revenue be devastating the question no
o se boss obe question so aka bo for cinema.
Thank you so much. My name is Seth Cobbins, LLM Natural Resource Student, Legon. Let me speak it.
So, in what capacity do you ask a question? It is this is
you know, it's a natural resources oriented.
It's a briefing for media persons.
So it's natural resources oriented. So actually,
well,
I also want to
make file the rules must be strictly enforced. It is not open to members of the general public. It is open only to media persons. If you have any other question in any other capacity, please write to the GoldBod for response.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So please take a cue, those of you who have lined up. If you are not a media person accredited, I will not be able to take your question. Yeah.
All right, so my name is Eko JB. I want to find out, in Mr. Sammy Gyamfi's submission, he made statement on the fact that they've made losses.
You've not identified yourself, the media house.
JB Isaac. Oh, on your TV.
All right, go ahead.
They've made losses in the past, in previous times. I want to find out if GoldBod, no, the previous administration, there were losses. So I want to find out if the state or GoldBod is interested in those losses and what are some of the interests they will develop in that particular losses.
I thought that you represent a tree station, so your question.
And I went there.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, Austin. Yeah. So Austin, you'll be the last in this session before we go for a final round. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Austin Wood, and I'm host for Morning Star. On the 3rd of March 2025, in an interview on Asempa FM, I quote Sammy Gyamfi. The domestic gold purchase program introduced under the NPP was a good thing. But the biggest challenge they didn't deal with was buying the gold at Forex Bureau rate. And when we are bringing back our receipts, we'd have to write it in Bank of Ghana reference rate. It's a reset. You've had enough time. According to the IMF, 50% of the losses was because of this, the difference. Why couldn't they have done or changed it so that by end 2025 these would have reduced, but they still continued with it till end of year? And the finance minister says that Ghana up, we are building 15 months of reserves. GoldBod with this new thing, Bank of Ghana is out. If only Bank of Ghana is buying from the big scale or big large scale miners, we will not be able by end 2028 meet that 15 months. How will GoldBod buying it, give it to Bank of Ghana, and Bank of Ghana, will they pay for it? What is in place for that to happen?
Right.
Thank
you very much. So Mr. Sammy Gyamfi will answer this set of questions, sir.
Thank you. There are a lot of questions, so I'll be very snappy. Number one, a cop wanted to know the losses we are talking about as having been made by Bank of Ghana. Are they really losses? Well, to the accountant, they are losses. That is why the IMF calls them accounting losses. But an accounting loss is not an economic loss. But because we are discussing this within the context of audited financial accounts of an organization, you can call it a loss. It's an accounting loss. But understanding that is important. That loss is not because of a fee, a lawful fee paid for assay or for services rendered, which are not free services. Neither is it because of a 1.2% discount offered the eventual buyer, the off-taker. Those are not the reasons. That is where we think the IMF got it, mischaracterized the issues. Those are what you call baseline program cost. Okay. But when you're talking about the accounting loss, I would say it's not even 50%. Over 80% of it is the difference between the Forex Bureau rate at which gold is bought and the fact that in Bank of Ghana's books, the dollar proceeds will be converted at Bank of Ghana rate. So today, let's say Forex Bureau rate. And Forex Bureau rate is not a paro rate. It's not a black market rate. It's a lawful rate because they are regulated by BOG. Let's say today, hypothetically speaking, because I've not checked, you need, say, 12.5 cedis to get $1 in a Forex Bureau. Under the domestic gold purchase program, agents of the Bank of Ghana were to buy it at this, we call it market rate or retail rate. Bank of Ghana is the one that says the agent should buy it at that rate. It is not the agent who decides the rate at which it will buy gold for a principal. You understand? But if the gold is sold and the dollar proceeds hit Bank of Ghana's accounts, the accountant at Bank of Ghana, in converting dollars into cedis, because the account must be in cedis, will not multiply it by 12.5, which is Forex Bureau rate. You will multiply it by Bank of Ghana rate, which will be around 11.1. So that book loss, you can call it that, accounts for 80 to 90% of what we are talking about. And we have explained this. The bank itself has explained this. Okay? If GoldBod was the one implementing this program, we would not have accepted this on our books, because we would have insisted for Parliament to pass the right laws that will allow the right treatment to be given that conversion. But because Bank of Ghana is a central bank, and all central banks are bound to operate with their own rates, their hands are tied. So that is the dilemma, or that is a difficult situation the bank found itself. And they knew this right from the inception of the program in 2021. This is not a new phenomenon. This is not something coming up today. Like I told you, in 2024, they were buying gold at as much as 17 cedis to the dollar. You understand? Even in 2025, the rates came down because the CD appreciated. So the dollar came down. So things were better. Imagine we were buying gold at 17 cedis to the dollar. At the quantity we and at those prices, you could have imagined what the figures would have been. So that is what it is. It is not an economic loss, it's an accounting loss. The IMF itself calls it valuation effects. And if you want to know the meaning of valuation effects, just Google it. I Googled it now. AI tells me the valuation effects refers to changes in the value of existing international assets and liabilities caused by shifts in exchange rates and asset prices. So you bought something at one exchange rate, the exchange rate you use to convert is different. That is what really the chunk of it is. Okay, and not because somebody there at the Bank of Ghana is incompetent or has stolen money. However, and Austin, I'll tie your question to it. So your question is, why didn't we stop? Why can't we stop this? Why are we continuing with it? The answer is simple. We have stopped it. No, the GoldBod was established in April 2025. So once you pass an act to establish a company, then the company will have departments, it will have task force, it will have market controls, and immediately begin to implement its mandate. Is that what you're suggesting? I'm not sure that is what you're suggesting. Because the baby must learn how to crawl before he walks or runs. You need time to set up an institution like the Ghana GoldBod. And it took us 9 months to do that, and to get our funds to do that. Now that Bank of Ghana has exited, the IMF also mischaracterizes that. They say that they have transferred domestic gold purchase program to us. Domestic gold purchase program has not been transferred to GoldBod. We are not implementing domestic gold purchase program. We are implementing our statutory mandate. And under that mandate, we buy gold at Bank of Ghana reference rate. Currently, we buy Bank of Ghana reference rate minus 10 pesos. We have moved the exchange rate determinant of local gold prices from black market under the MPP to Forex Bureau to now Bank of Ghana reference rate minus 10 pesos. You can go on our website now and check. And we've done this in just about a year. So we are not repeating that. Good. Now, are we interested in past losses? As I've explained to you, I'm sure the domestic good purchase program is being audited forensically by the Bank of Ghana itself from inception 2021 to date. Because under them, you didn't hear a lot about domestic good purchase program. Who here remembers under the MPP in 2024-2023 whether you heard any publications about losses under good for reserves and good for oil? It was all shrouded in opacity. And that is why when the governor went to the Bank of Ghana Public Accounts Committee and spoke about losses made under the program in 2024, the chairperson, Abna Sari, said, Governor, give me evidence. She was challenging the governor that it is not in BOG's audit report, so it is not true. Until the IMF stated in their latest report that 2024 loss was $400 million. You've seen that they've kept quiet. So the Bank of Ghana, therefore, is auditing the program forensically from inception 2021 to date. And I'm sure that what was due to accounting translational effects will come out. And if anything was attributable to criminal conduct or negligence by anybody, it will come out in the audit. So let's wait for that. Then, is GoldBod selling its good itself? That is what we mean when we say that effective March 2026, the GoldBod is now implementing a statutory mandate. What that means is that, unlike in 2025, where we were merely a buying agent, just like Resafai, a private company, giving money to buy gold on agreed terms. Now, we are not Bank of Ghana's buying agents. We raise money. The money can come through BOG or commercial banks directly or from our off-takers. And we buy gold, and the gold is ours. We sell the gold ourselves under off-take agreements signed by us. And the dollars come into our bank accounts as GoldBod. And then we sell the dollars to the Bank of Ghana and commercial banks. So that is what we have been doing since March, April 2026. That's the difference. Good. Now, Salah, like Felix said, I answered your question. But let me just add this. He said people say that because of the role I played in opposition and all that. I'm not the only person who played a role in bringing the NDC to power. And I am not those who think that because of the role I played in opposition, I should be insulated or immune to criticism. Public officers must uphold the principles of probity and accountability. That is the underlying principle of the 1992 Constitution and a very key tenet of value of the National Democratic Congress that I belong to. So we embrace and welcome constructive criticism. When Kojo Opon Nkrumah, for example, criticizes GoldBod, I may disagree. With him and say that he's not being factual. But it's not personal because he's making an intellectual argument. Okay, if somebody like Abna Sari or say criticizes GoldBod, you can see that poor woman, he doesn't have the information. It's not personal. It's not personal. She doesn't have the information. You understand? If Anta criticizes GoldBod, all of them have criticized us in the past. We've not done a press conference. It is their entitlement. They are entitled to the opinion because they don't make it personal. You've not heard any of them talking about, hey, any bail conditions, they are best soon. You understand? But when you hear that guy speaks, you know that there is a problem. This is personal. So we are not saying that we are above criticism. No, we accept and embrace criticism because it is at the heart of public service. Land reclamation. This is one of the issues that His Excellency the President is very, very passionate about. It is true that when a concession is allotted to a miner, be it a small-scale miner or a large-scale miner, there are requirements under the mining regulations of Ghana for them to undertake reclamation of They must cover pits, they must plant trees, and in some cases, they are even asked to post environmental bonds by the EPA. And therefore, the responsibility for reclamation, lies at the doorstep of that licensed miner. But look, we've been mining gold for over 126 years. And we all know that the enforcement of this reclamation requirement has been a challenge. And yet, GoldBod, that is barely 2 years old, must confront these age-long problems, these decade-long problems. But we are not going to make excuses. We are not going to say that these problems predate us, so we are going to fold our arms and just lament. So President Mahama is saying that even though GoldBod, you didn't cause the damage, because I have now set you up, and you are now operating effectively, and you're supposed to make profits from the gold you're buying and selling. When you make the profits, there is something called corporate social responsibility. Go to the areas that the lands have been devastated without reclamation and use part of your profit to reclaim those areas. That is why we went to Samreboy, Tano Nimiri Forest, and currently we are reclaiming 50 hectares. We have engaged the Engineers Regiment of the Ghana Armed Forces and the Forestry Commission. We are paying them over 35 million Ghana cedis for that as part of phase 1. And next year, President Mahama says we should cover at least 150 hectares of degraded forest reserves. And we are going to do that next year. So it is not our obligation, it's the obligation of the miners, but you cannot say that because that has not been done over the years, nothing should be done. And that is why GoldBod is a very important intervention that we must all support. Because if you didn't have a GoldBod, who will be reclaiming Apaprama and Tano? Who will be doing that? The private people will not do it. And we have to always rely on donor funds for these reclamation projects. Now, traceability, an issue that keeps coming up, Galamsey gold. So, since Ghana started producing gold, that gold has always had a market. That gold has always been bought. And it was being bought by private individuals, and we're all in this country. And nobody said anything. And private individuals who were foreigners and Ghanaians bought this gold and exported it. Until the MPP government in 2021 decided to now go into gold purchasing. And when they went into gold purchasing through the Bank of Ghana and aggregators of the Bank of Ghana like PMMC, under gold for oil, gold for reserves, they were buying gold. Nobody even spoke about who they were buying the gold from. It was never an issue. Then GoldBod comes in 2025, and all of a sudden somebody says that, the reason why Galamsey is going on is because of GoldBod. Did Galamsey start in 2025 or 2026? No. Gold will always and has always had a market. Okay? Now, GoldBod has a buying system for buying gold. And that buying system is that we go through private licensed entities to buy the gold from miners. Now, we have told these people in their terms and conditions that buy gold from licensed miners. How do you check if that is being done? The only way you can check is through the use of technology. That is what we call traceability. And this technology has been non-existent in Ghana for decades. But I'm happy to tell you that under the direction of His Excellency President Mahama, we are now involved in a national competitive tendering process, which will be concluded this year and will allow us to acquire a modern traceability system, which will help us to trace every ounce of gold we purchase as GoldBod to their mines of origin. So once that system now is rolled out, then we will be able to know the sources of the gold. And then Parliament can pass a law as to what should happen to Galamsey gold. Whether that gold should be rejected and we should allow the people to smuggle it, or we should confiscate it, or we should buy it at a punitive discount. We'll go to Parliament for Parliament to pass that law. But for now, if Sammy Gyamfi sits in Accra, CEO of GoldBod, and his aggregator brings him 20 bars of gold, 5 kilograms each. If you hold a 5 kilogram bar of gold, can you with your naked eye tell where that gold, the components of that 5 kg bar, and which parts of the country or which mine it came from, for you to say I will reject or accept? No. And that is why we need technology. Nobody has done it. Those who did good for oil, good for reserve, didn't do it. President Mohammed's GoldBod will do it this year. Thank you very much. Now, the final one is on GANRAP. Austin, GANRAP aims at accumulating foreign reserves of 15 months of import cover. The finance minister calls it building shock absorbers for the economy, so that in the day of exogenous shocks like COVID-19, Russia, Ukraine, we will not be lamenting and making excuses. So we are preparing for what the Bible calls the evil day. So that is what we are doing. But we are not doing that only from large-scale gold purchases. When we talk about reserves of 50 months of import cover, we are not talking about gold reserves. We are talking about foreign reserves. And that reserves is either in gold or in United States dollars. So what the GoldBod is doing helps us to increase the reserves in US dollars. Because the dollars we bring, part is sold to commercial banks so that BDCs and all importers and businesses who need dollars can get that. The remainder is added to the reserve to shore it up. You understand? And then gold that is also bought is also kept in the reserve because gold is a reserve asset. So through the combination of gold
don't worry, he will answer it when he comes back. But which
Hello?
one certainly not coming back. So we'll take three last questions, and that will be it for today.
Okay.
It will be answered. It will be answered. Yes.
Okay, so my name is Kesta.
Please keep it short.
My name is Kesta
we'll
Crunchy. I write for the Daily Graphic. The report that mentioned the surplus that GoldBod had, I have read it. There is only one thing that I think I will flag. The revenue you were supposed to pay to GRA, the 36 million, which has not been paid. Yeah. I wanted to know if, as at now, you have paid it or not. And then can I ask the next one? Because you said we had one.
This one, I would allow.
Okay.
You have from
okay.
Daily Graphic. So you fall under my auspices. So exactly.
So, Mr. Gyamfi, because that is flagged, and I wanted to know if you have paid for it. In the future, are you going to keep on withholding such monies from us? Because if you read the report, it said that it denied government money to execute its projects. And if you are making surplus and you are denying us money, I don't think that is fair.
I'm sure the GRA will be extremely pleased with your intervention. Yeah, Akosia, the floor is yours.
Akosia, report for City FM, Channel 1 Television. So, now that the Bank of Ghana financing has ended and you're forced to depend on commercial banks and off-takers, you say, I want to find out from you what if these off-takers and commercial banks see some risks in there. It could be for various reasons, maybe operational risk, liquidity risk, and they decide to pull out. What alternative does the GoldBod have?
Thank you very much. So the last word, as far as questions are concerned, we'll go to the Weasel TV correspondent.
Hello, my name is Belinda Anand Kwanzaa from Weasel TV. You said GoldBod's new model is not anchored on BOG's financing, with the act allowing it to raise funds from financial markets, investors and off-takers, like Akosia said. How much has GoldBod raised or generated from these sources so far, and what has been the financial outcome of this funding model? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me start with the last question. In terms of funds that we have raised, between March and May this year, under our model to raise advances from off-takers, we were able to raise close to 839 million United States dollars on our own from off-takers to buy gold. And all that dollars was sold to the Bank of Ghana. 839 million United States dollars that we sourced from our off-takers into our bank accounts at Bank of Ghana, which we offloaded, the FX we offloaded to the Bank of Ghana at the Bank of Ghana reference rate under a forex sale agreement between Bank of Ghana and GoldBod. So that is with off-take advances. Then you have our program to raise money directly from the commercial banks. Because this whole talk about Bank of Ghana financing GoldBod, you need to understand it. It doesn't mean that Bank of Ghana goes and take its own money and give it to GoldBod to buy gold. You see, there is something called intermediation. And intermediation means that there are businesses and individuals in Ghana who need foreign currency dollars to transact business. And economic activity is not able to generate the supply of that dollars in the banking system to meet that demand. So the Bank of Ghana comes up with a beautiful program, intermediation, and says, commercial banks, if your customers need the dollars, take all their cedis and bring it to me, the central bank, as an intermediary. That is why it is called intermediation. As an intermediary, through an auction. And tell me that you want $50 million from your customers. Then Bank B will say, I want $100 million. Bank C will say, I want $10 million. And bring me that cedis from your customers. Then I will take it as a middleman. The Bank of Ghana is like a middleman intermediary. And I'll give it to GoldBod to convert the cedis into gold. Sell the gold for dollars. And when GoldBod sells the dollars to us, we will give the dollars to you. That is the process of intermediation. And that is what people think, that when we say BOG financing GoldBod, is that so good, but BOG is giving free money. No, it is a partnership. But what we are seeking to do this year is that we want a certain collaborative framework that allows the GoldBod itself to deal with the commercial banks directly without going through Bank of Ghana. And we want to do this through what we are calling a funded FX forward sales arrangement. We did a pilot on the 3rd of August. We raised $75 million from the commercial banks directly, and we settled it in 48 hours. In 48 hours, we were able to convert the $78 million into gold and into the CD equivalent, into gold and dollars, and we settled them in dollars, no losses. But the Bank of Ghana has some concerns. So the Ministry of Finance is working with us for us to get broad stakeholder inputs into the framework before we resume. That is why it is on hold. We also have another plank of that model, where we use our own seed capital and the working capital of aggregators to buy gold, bring in dollars, and we sell directly to commercial banks. And through that arrangement, we brought in $164 million, and only 2 days ago, $270 million. So put that together, roughly, you're talking about over $450 million. Our activities generate a lot of foreign currency. So these are the different planks of the new funding model, that now that the GoldBod is implementing the gold purchase program from beginning to end as buyer and seller and owner, these are the models we are exploring. Then there was a question from our sister that, what if there are risks associated with this funding model and off-takers and commercial banks pull out? What will we do? Gold is a very risky, gold trading is a very risky enterprise. There are so many risks, but it behoves on every gold trading institution to put in place the necessary risk mitigation measures to manage the risk. And so we carry our stakeholders along. So far, so good. And we don't think that, we believe they have absolute confidence in our model. So far, we've received 15 letters from 15 commercial banks who have expressed interest that they want to be onboarded to participate in our funded FX forward sale arrangement. And we believe that more will join. So we don't think that stakeholders will pull out. Tax revenue. Please, let me state for the record before somebody reports that. Yes, governance is a continuum, so it's about GoldBod, we understand. But let's put the issues in their right perspective. That tax obligation had to do with PMMC's tax obligation in 2023 and 2024. Now, because of the transition, a certain audit had to be done, a certain tax audit had to be done for GoldBod to ascertain whether there were any outstanding tax obligations owed by the defunct PMMC to GRA. So that is why at the time, when the auditor came, they saw an outstanding of 36. We even thought that the figure could be different. So what we have done, in accordance with the recommendations of the Auditor General, is to write to GRA, asking them to come for a tax audit, so that we ascertain the accurate outstanding tax liability of PMMC. and then as the successor of the PMMC, pay that to the GRA. But as for GoldBod, GoldBod has no outstanding tax obligations to the GRA as at 2025, and 2026 we are up to date. We had a few days ago a few challenges with the system that is used to pay these things, and we've written to them on that. So thank you very much for that question. I believe, Honorable Minister, that I have done. Then Salamatu, let me answer your question. Are we ready to publish data on our gold purchases, our gold sales, export volumes? The answer is yes. And in fact, we do publish this data on our website from time to time. We do publish that because the GoldBod Act is very stringent on transparency. We are required on a quarterly basis to publish our audited financials and management accounts and so on, and trade volumes and all that. And so we do. I will check if we are not up to date, and I will, if that is the case, I will instruct the Corporate Directorate accordingly for them to be up to date with those publications. And this year, 2026, at the end of the year, we will give the nation a holistic report on our activities. You will know the gold we bought. You will know its value in cedis, its value in dollars, the inflows that came into the economy in dollars. You will know the cost that the taxpayer through the Ministry of Finance bore for those purchases. You will know the cost that before GoldBod took over the trade, Bank of Ghana bore, we will tell you. And then we will tell you our P&L, whether we made profit or loss. And then we'll tell you the benefits that our operations generated for the country. So this year we are going to be very holistic in how we report on our activities by the end of year. And so, Honorable Minister, with your permission, I will just conclude by saying that we thank you, our friends in the media, for the continuous interest you've taken in the activities of the GoldBod and the collaboration you have always provided us. We consider you as very useful stakeholders in the important job we have been given under the Ghana GoldBod Act, and we will continue to ask for your support. We'll continue to ask for the support of the good people of Ghana. We have been given a task to rewrite Ghana's narrative about how our people have been hewers of wood and drawers of water, despite the rich mineral wealth we've been endowed with as a country. We want to move this country from extraction to real value creation, and into a mining economy where Ghanaians benefit from the good resources that God has blessed us with, because those resources are managed in ways that translate into tangible economic benefits that we can all see and measure. A lot is happening, and I hope to come back here, subject to the invitation of the Honorable Minister, for us to have a broader conversation about some of the milestones we are chalking in this endeavor and what the next chapter portends for the GoldBod. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sammy Gyamfi, for that exhaustive presentation, which should put paid to any falsehood or disinformation that may be spread about the activities of the GoldBod. And we are more than happy to host you anytime you are ready to shed further light on your activities. So until we come your way next week, thank you all for coming. Thank you.
GoldBod took Bank of Ghana's money to assay gold and collect its fees. It cannot claim the credit that comes with the revenue while pushing every loss into Bank of Ghana's balance sheet. This is precisely why Bank of Ghana has decided to stop GoldBod's gold purchasing operation going forward. The losses generated by GoldBod's own purchasing, pricing, and sales decision can no longer sit on the bank's books while GoldBod enjoys the credit. What we are witnessing is a disingenuous accounting arrangement, clean on the surface, dirty in substance, and it is ordinary Ghanaian taxpayer who is left carrying the risk. That ends today. We are asking straightforward questions, and we expect straightforward answers. Who are the off-takers? Why were sales discounted? And why is the mandate to trade gold on the country's behalf producing losses the country was never told about? Now, let me deal with the numbers Ghana cannot ignore. The IMF tells us that 17% of the value of every ounce of gold sold by the Bank of Ghana simply disappeared. It vanished into the gap between the rates paid to miners and the rate used for the books. Add the fees paid to the middlemen. Add the discounts handed to off-takers. This is not rounding error. This is not teething trouble. This is a structural bleeding of our national purse. And it was not the opposition that found it. I repeat, it was the IMF's own economists. And the government has accepted that indeed these losses are true. Now look at what this bleeding has done to our central bank. By the fund's own numbers, the Bank of Ghana's equity stood at negative 93.8 billion cedis at the end of last year, negative 6.7% of GDP. Our central bank is technically bankrupt, therefore. And the single biggest driver of that collapse in the 2025 was gold operations, GoldBod. GoldBod's own domain, 22 billion cedis. That's equivalent of the 1.7 billion US dollars in 1 year alone. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, let's call it what it is. These losses are not bad luck. You don't trade in gold and make losses. They are not a difficult market. They expose the crass incompetence of GoldBod's management and misaligned policy of the government. No serious institution loses this much money by accident. This is what happens when an untouchable few are handed the nation's gold with no one watching and no one willing to ask questions. Ghanaians have already sacrificed much to keep this economy standing. We tighten our belt for the sake of stability. That is why it is so painful to watch this scheme quietly give away sums that will make any right-thinking citizens weep. We did not endure hardship so that billions could vanish into unexplained spread and unnamed off-takers. Let us be honest about what $1.7 billion actually means. It is hospitals that will not be built. It is needless maternal death that would not be prevented because the theaters, the blood banks, and the trained hands that could have saved a mother in labor were never funded. It is schools that will not be built. It is poor roads that will not be constructed. Roads that claim life every week. It is water treatment facilities that will not be constructed. Even as our people's water is poisoned by galamsey, this government has failed to control. Every one of these is Ghanaian life diminished by a loss that does not have to happen. Now let me emphasize that the latest IMF report, which is the IMF's sixth and final review of Ghana's extended credit facility program, completed on 10th of July 2026 concerning the financial consequences of the NDC government's domestic gold purchase program. According to the IMF, this domestic exchange program, which the Bank of Ghana accumulated gold and intermediated foreign exchange to the private sector, generated, for emphasis, $1.7 billion US dollars, which is equivalent of 22 billion in 2025 alone. So you are looking at approximately 1.5% of Ghana's entire gross domestic product. And again, we are not ignorant. We are not speculating. We are not a manufacturing allegation. It is not partisan interpretation. It is a finding reported by the IMF after examining Ghana's economic and financial program, and it demands honest answers. We have this. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, this is a summary of the IMF report. After the bulky report, they came out with this, which is the selected issues dated August 2026. International Monetary Fund, IMF country report number 26/213. Those who are doing fact check. And it says, International Monetary Fund, Washington, D.C. This has been accepted by government, and government is acting on the concerns raised by the IMF. And to those who are thinking that the GoldBod has not incurred any losses because they decided to use Bank of Ghana as its alter ego. When I say alter ego, what I mean is that you use another institution to carry all your burdens on your behalf. So you appear clean. So you can conveniently say that the Auditor General has gone through your books and you do not have losses. But the losses were incurred by you. So how can you record profit and the cost is not incurred by you? Who does this? Anyway, the IMF says that, quote, in 2025, the significant scaling up of the domestic gold purchasing program operations led to losses of $1.67 billion US dollars, 1.5% of GDP, almost entirely related to the gold for reserve dot purchase. This amounted to a loss of 17% of the value of the dog gold sold by BOG. On whose behalf? GoldBod. This is here. It's here. It's there. Paragraph 13. Page 10. And ladies and gentlemen, we need to emphasize something. We, the minority, we work as a team. When the minority leader speaks, he speaks for the party. The party has a political committee we call the tripod. The flag bearer, who is the leader of our party, taking us to Jubilee, the party machinery, and parliament. These three units work together with a policy coordinating chair, my respected colleague Kojo Oponkruma. We coordinate and speak with one voice. It doesn't matter who speaks. So when a matter is raised on policy, a chief executive of an institution cannot choose and single the leader out for insults. In the minimum, the caucus knows it brief and will not speak and blow hot air. That is the report I've shown you. So now the Ghanaian people will see who is ignorant, who is doing mischief, who is lying to the public. We will not just come out and say anything because of partisan convenience. What is happening is bad. There is crisis ahead of us. Our friends must better listen and pay attention. and not allow the IMF to rather come and talk to them before they listen. When things go bad in our country, it affects all of us. So we are here to hold their feet to the fire and make them accountable to the people of Ghana. We are not here to trade insults, and that must be clear to them. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, from the transactions arranged between GoldBod and Bank of Ghana, GoldBod was not an uninvolved spectator. It is the very institution with a statutory and operational mandate, as I've said, to buy, sell, weigh, grade, assay, value, and export gold and other precious minerals in Ghana. Therefore, the role GoldBod played in the transaction places significant responsibility on it because, one, GoldBod participated directly in buying, aggregating, assaying, and exporting the gold. Two, Bank of Ghana provided the financing. Three, GoldBod earned fees from the transactions. But when the program generated substantial financial losses, those losses were not reported on the balance sheet of GoldBod. What kind of voodoo accounting is this? Who does this? And then GoldBod wants us to believe that it has not made losses, it is clean, and wants to mislead the people of Ghana. No, that cannot be the truth. The arrangements made require much deeper scrutiny than government has so far been willing to provide. Ghanaians must also remember how this story developed. When initially the Fifth Review raised concerns about the gold program, the discussion centered around an estimated 214 million quasi-fiscal loss identified through the September 2025 report. The IMF explained that losses arose from the trading activities, fees, and exchange rate movement, and specifically called for greater transparency, governance, and risk management around the GoldBod linked channel of the domestic gold purchase program. We were subsequently told that GoldBod itself had made no loss. However, Section 13 of IMF country report, as quoted supra, stated. The real question, therefore, is what did Ghana lose from the transaction? The IMF has now answered the question, which I've quoted supra, for the full year, an equivalent of 22 billion cedis. The Ghanaian taxpayer ultimately stands to lose on this. And now for emphasis and further explanation, the accounting location of a loss does not change its economic reality. This is perhaps the most important point that we, the caucus, want to put across. If GoldBod was legally an agent of Bank of Ghana, there may be a technical accounting basis for recognizing the underlying trade losses at the Bank of Ghana rather than recording them as GoldBod's own corporate losses. But Bank of Ghana is not interested only in which ledger the loss entered. We must ask, who designed the arrangement? Who approved it? Who executed it? Who controlled the risk? And why safeguards failed to prevent losses of this magnitude? An accounting structure cannot be used as a shield against public accountability. If one state institution is responsible for buying, aggregating, assaying, and exporting gold, while another state institution supplies the capital and bears virtually all of the downside, Parliament is entitled to ask whether the risk allocation itself was prudent. And we pose it, whether the risk allocation is prudent. In fact, the structure creates an obvious governance problem, where the entity carrying out the commercial activity receives fees based on transactions, while another institution bears the principal financial risk. Incentives can become dangerously misaligned. The institution making or influencing the operational decisions may enjoy the upside of increased volumes and fees without carrying an equivalent share of the downside when the transactions perform poorly. That is precisely why strong risk limits, independent oversight, transparent pricing rules, and clear accountability arrangements were indispensable. The 22 billion outcome raises serious questions about whether those protections were adequate. Now I repeat, GoldBod cannot hide behind accounting technicalities. GoldBod, I must say, is entitled to make the accounting point that it was purchasing gold on behalf of Bank of Ghana. But agency does not extinguish operational responsibility. An agent entrusted with billions of cedis or public resources remains responsible for the quality of its execution. GoldBod's own description of its mandate confirms that it occupies a central position in Ghana's gold trading structure, with exclusive authority over buying, selling, weighing, grading, assaying, valuing, and exporting gold. Therefore, GoldBod must tell Ghanaians the following. 1. What prices were paid for gold? How were those prices determined? What premiums, if any, were paid to secure the supply? How were international off-takers selected? At what discounts were those gold sold? How much was earned by GoldBod in service and asset charges from transactions financed by Bank of Ghana? What commercial risk did GoldBod itself bear? What transactional risk were passed automatically to Bank of Ghana? What internal risk controls existed to protect the financier, the Bank of Ghana? What corrective measures were taken as losses accumulated? And most importantly, if GoldBod controlled critical part of the trading process, but Bank of Ghana absorbed losses, where precisely did commercial accountability reside? These questions aforementioned go to the heart of the very matter we have raised. So, this model where entity earns fees and another absorbs losses requires scrutiny. In fact, it stinks. It stinks. The structure deserves particular attention because it creates what economists and governance professionals will recognize as a potential moral hazard problem. If an institution earns transaction-based income for purchasing, assaying, and aggregating gold, while the financier bears the underlying trading losses, then increasing transaction volumes may increase the agent revenue even where the overall program destroys value for the principal. Any responsible government confronted with this 22 billion loss should immediately investigate whether the incentive structure encouraged excessive volumes, inadequate pricing discipline, or insufficient attention to trading costs. We therefore reject any attempt to answer the public concerns merely by pointing to GoldBod's reported surplus. Yes, we concede that it is the Auditor General that has conducted an audit, but the Auditor General was not given access to the full picture. If the Auditor General knows that indeed the costs of GoldBod's transaction were borne by Bank of Ghana, Auditor General would not declare surplus in its accounting reporting. Therefore, GoldBod profitability and the profitability of the transaction it executed for BOG are two different matters. A middleman can earn a fee while the principal loses money. Really? The question for Ghana is whether the country received value for the risk it assumed. Now, the most damning fact that may be what happened next. Actions often reveal more than explanations. After the experience of the old financial model, Now we hear the Bank of Ghana resolved to stop financing GoldBod, all because of what the IMF said. GoldBod itself announced on 11th of August 2026 that it has ended its role as buying agent for the BOG. And since March 2026, it has ceased receiving BOG funds to purchase gold on Bank of Ghana's behalf. GoldBod said it had instead transitioned toward mobilizing financing directly from commercial banks and off-takers. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to pause here and help you with some explanation so that in your reporting, you would also understand the story. It wouldn't be that the minority led by Afenyo-Markin is telling a Kokwanansi story. We are not telling you a Kokwanansi story. If all was well, why are they taking these steps? In fact, the GoldBod chief executive said the IMF itself did not understand the transaction. He said publicly that he thinks the IMF doesn't understand. All the economists at the IMF, he said they didn't understand. He accused my friend Kojo Oponkruma, who did BCom at Kivas, that Kojo doesn't understand accounting. I did BCom. Of course, I abandoned it somewhere along the line and did my law program. But Kojo completed his BCom. BCom is accounting. He accused Kojo that he doesn't understand accounting. He said this on TV3 program. Then he went on to attack our colleague, the chartered accountant, former Minister of State at the Finance Ministry and chair of the Public Accounts Committee, a fourth termer in Parliament, Honorable Abna Oseyasare, also accused her. Then I took the last hit. But what the GoldBod chief executive has forgotten is that when initially the fees were around 15% and the minority raised the first red flag and the press conference was held by our respected colleague Oponkruma on our behalf, there was an immediate emergency board meeting, a joint emergency board meeting by GoldBod and Bank of Ghana, and they quickly reviewed the fees to 9%. That was the first point of indication of the minority. According to them, we are ignorant. If we were that ignorant, why is it that when we raise a red flag, the 15% that they were charging, they reduced it to 9%? That was the first point. And when we escalated it through a motion on the House floor, they now went further and reduced it to 5%. So the question is, all those initial losses, now we want to put away IMF, all those initial losses, if the charges were legitimate at 15%, why didn't they remain the way they were? So the minority must be commended for saving the public purse. Why the insult? Why the attack? If the IMF is wrong, why the remedial measures? Why are they taking steps to now say that they are moving away from the original model and now they are doing something new? So they must account for the 22 billion losses. It amounts to causing financial loss to the state. And GoldBod is responsible for causing financial loss to the state. The minority will say this firmly and boldly. It doesn't matter the adjectives you use to attack our personality. We know that a day of reckoning will come. They should remember that post-regime accountability awaits them. 22 billion Ghana cedis in just a year. It's not me, it's not Mama Pat, it's not this handsome man standing behind me, it's not this other handsome man, it's not these handsome men who are saying it. It is the IMF. And government has accepted, conceded that indeed these were huge losses. Why the insult? Pourquoi? Minewo. Egomede. Ade na mudi di atem. Ogoton gold aboka. I am a force sika podu eti say 22 billion maboka. Mwama jia tumu se maboka. Nyebonyumo. Ekakasia na mabo Ghana 22 billion cedis. Na ya minority dia omatro amwa jia tum na yeka wasem. Na mubedi di atem. Na Afenyo-Markin aye say, no pon krumati say, na abno say asati say. Enye wo be ko social media ke didi atem, ena be sesa dia, IMF atro. Ye ba ye no yenim se sebe ebinum de omotecha maso no, eye doko nti ye de IMF report no bae. Nti ye sremu nsem trofo. Mo waso die kese. Eye nsem abinum be kan nyina na sese mo tie ne sa. Ebinum kan tro. Omu twa ntro so ana omo aye so mom na e ka no kre. Who to gold? Who dija? Who akoboka? Wosi buya na wabono? Who di akotro wo bi buku mu? Na wo dia dia wato na esika na ba wo wosi wanya mfaso. Nti wo dia yeka na ya woka. Na what be da? We be a company mienu. Company ba ko na ye di staff salary ato. E na company ba ko so na ye di sales akoto. Nti ye ba ye si o menya mfaso. Na ekana wo boy and the cost of sales no way 22 billion no way inti yesremo atem di die ne die en sheki ba ne kure wo mu ne se so far se obi akoye adwuma mpo baby na sende iyokofo tata no iyokofo tata binum Attorney General ye press conference osio obimpo oye ayaban adwuma eka 5 million cedis 3 million cedis 10 million cedis ye tumi frɛ wo iyoko na wakoda ho na ye se fa ejapade asumbo for branch ya mobile nani GoldBod for bed ya be hu si o me ba we dia sa 22 billion losses here almost GoldBod aboki and then who bill ezika ben na ye de be bill oh we as said ye tie yes wo we ofun sa na wa hwe won sa we asi aye wo no se tumi ba wonsem na se wode tata obi a hweniye NDC for nam MPP for abokrono MPP for abokrono MPP for to say MPP for to say gold kaka munkoton no gold munkoton gold Mokoboka 22 billion cedis afi baako ya kan ya no mu visa mu didi atemu a na ya bohu na mu di eti ebubom enti no ye de aye kan ne se nyame cha de parliament ebebie ye nua no se onu de op debate ya ti asesa ye penisa na ye debate bia ye kwhye kuko bia mu aye ye pese ye kai ne se so pe debate a GoldBod for so mu pe debate a omudi kan enkanche majority for no because ye di kan di first motion by no ye see ye debate na ye ma GoldBod embra na yenye enhwehwemu no majority for no mo say omuntie ensentro for amu na munim inti no parliament bia ye the motion for eba some motion where ye be dealing with the $1.7 billion which is equivalent of 22 billion no enu sa eka no ene ye be somo no GoldBod wo ho inti say GoldBod for say omo ye krado dia omudi kan chair new majority leader onimnyamfo agaga no nti ase se en koba ne so omudi 189 no ebe bloko Yes, speaker so say emotion no eba mo for technicalities mba na nkoba ne say ya approve ye ni say for the sake of governance, for the sake of transparency. Omumma kwan, we the minority will not relent on this. The GoldBod has thrown a challenge that it is ready to debate this issue. If indeed it is ready, then we propose to the majority, don't stop us the second time. Yes. Don't use your 189 to vote against an invitation to GoldBod for a probe into what accounted for the 22 billion losses. Don't use your supermajority to stop scrutiny. It is your own man, your darling boy, that called for this. So, majority, please, our motion is ready. We will file it before we get back next week. And we pray that you, the majority in Parliament, will fully cooperate with us, the minority. Something must be done. We need money for the hospitals. Yes. If government said there's no money to complete the Agenda 111 project, if government is still borrowing, yet it can find 22 billion, and this 22 billion, according to the IMF, is vanished into thin air. Sikana ira, sikana she, sikana wahin. Intanya atem didie. Yesre, ye juma yesre Ghana mine. Munta yechi. Ne baby a 22 billion wono. Yen hwehwe. Enye personal attack, enye obi, ene sebi ye jealous, and ye time no, ene ye nebi. This is a complete policy failure, institutional failure. Buying promising reset no, and living up to expectation. Private sector, they are burdening the private sector with taxes. Ghana for electricity are buying by almost 30% electricity tariffs. Who got up petrol? Omu charge you 1 Ghana cedi per liter. Asenya to me bio. Ejuma omu promise here 1 job 3 shifts. Atonsium omu entumi anye. Almost a 24-hour economy. Yantunje. Omwankasa essay. So muba baimwa. I want to baba Ghana. And then the enemy say, Omuchiroma, no Makwachi, MPP ni chino. Yenchino, chino. Yenchino. Nasana omuya saying nano. Ye omuya saying on Omwankasa omwechigo. Omo yese nyina no omo echi eguo wo chi obi se wabo aban na oman no ka 50 million 5 million 10 million and the minority focus na mo threaten mo be chi omo obi a waye minister da na wo si wakosa ni bibi na mo threaten sana mo ankasa within 1 year GoldBod nkwa 22 billion cedis. Now why na esesa ye di proye ata ye ehye abaya ama Ghana ase sika elusi sika kese sei. Why between MPP ni NDC why na ebo omaneka na essence omu kra aban tumi enti akoban se omu de omu di tumi no eye dia omu pese omu ye ndi dia me se and say majority muma kwan na GoldBod 22 billion ekano parliament bia yenka wasem GoldBod yesremu enya atemdidie mumbe yimano na ekano mutumutan mabaka GoldBod mabaka mutumutan wetua Ghana Ghana sika yen na yeka minority na yeka o IMF for and
issues pertaining to the GoldBod, the Bank of Ghana, and the funded FX forward sale. I'm delighted that the IMF has brought this to the fore in its Article 4 consultation, the recent one that they issued in August. And according to the IMF, it says that the domestic gold purchase program recorded losses to the tune of $1.7 billion. But if you would recall, the Bank of Ghana in their 2025 financial statement reported $214 million as the loss. This loss of 1.7 billion is equivalent to 22 billion Ghana cedis, and that is 1.5% of our GDP. And this same 22 billion Ghana cedis was the amount that was used to salvage the banks, the customers, the 1.2 million depositors who had lost their funds as a result of the banking issues. So clearly, you see the quantum of monies that are going waste. 22 billion Ghana cedis loss. And this same equivalent of 22 billion was used to save 1.2 million depositors. So that is why we are concerned. That is why we are talking about it, that just one entity using 22.5 billion as a loss. The Minister of Health is complaining about the fact that he needs 6 billion Ghana cedis to recruit nurses. And here we are, 22 billion Ghana cedis going down the drain, when we could have used that amount of money to support the recruitment exercise at the Ministry of Health to enable the many nurses who are currently at home, to enable them to be employed. And for this one, it's going to be a win-win. The 22 billion, government is not going to recover. But if they had spent 6 billion out of the 22 billion, you will employ the nurses, unemployment rates will come down, and these same nurses will help you generate more revenue because they are going to pay income taxes. So this is where our concern is, and this is where we are coming from. 22 billion Ghana cedis going down the drain, when just a fraction of it could have been used to support the Ministry of Health to recruit the number of nurses they are talking about. Another issue is this: BOG recorded $214 million as the loss. IMF comes, IMF is privy to all the data and everything and says, no, the loss is not $214 million as you recorded, but $1.7 billion. I'm asking, the accounting firm that audited Bank of Ghana, I want to hear from them on this. Because, so how did they treat the difference of close to 1.4 billion? How was it treated? That it cannot be seen in their financial statement for BOG to declare that they only made a loss of 214 million Ghana cedis, and then the IMF comes and says, no, that loss on GoldBod is 1.7 billion. So I'm also calling out the accounting firm that audited Bank of Ghana. They should come clean. We want to hear from them. We need an explanation of how they treated the difference of 1.4 billion. That is very, very important, because here their credibility is at stake. And when you look at what attributed to the losses, I find it a bit hard to believe, but clearly that is what happened. Let me state that IMF said that these are assay fees paid to the GoldBod. They pay fees, and then we end up making a loss of 1.7 billion. These are discounts applied to gold sold to the off-takers. Even the small gold sellers around, they don't sell gold and make losses. Yet we give off-takers discounts. I don't understand. We are expecting GoldBod not to insult, elevate the conversation, give us explanation, because it's of concern to everybody. If you can make a loss of 22 billion, when 6 billion of that loss can be used to employ more than 10,000 nurses, clearly you have a case to tell the people of Ghana, respectfully. And as a result of this, we all know that the negative position of BOG increased from 58 billion to 93 billion. A huge gap, close to about 40 billion. And all government could do in the mid-year budget was to give them a paltry sum of 5 billion Ghana cedis. You ask yourself, you give Bank of Ghana that you have helped to make a loss of close to 40 billion, just 5 billion. And then 2 working days before the financial year ends, you give one entity, not an entity that takes care of our money, not an entity that cuts across. You give that entity 4.5 billion Ghana cedis. You ask yourself, all the ministries, departments, and agencies, ask them if the budget that was voted for them for Parliament for the year 2025, if they had 100% of their budget. No ministry, not even ministries that are pursuing government policy. It didn't happen. You ask Free SHS, you ask Ministry of Agric, you ask Ministry of Roads, you ask Ministry of Interior. They are all managing very important government policies. You ask them whether their budget, their full budget, was given to them at the end of 2025, let alone just 48 hours to the end of the year. It's never happened. And so if we are, GoldBod is happy saying that, they made a profit of 909 million Ghana cedis. We all should be thinking, if that money wasn't given at the dawn of time, the huge losses GoldBod would have been making, coupled with the huge loss the Bank of Ghana has already incurred on their behalf. President Mahama, we are asking you to call for proper and further investigations into what is happening at GoldBod. I am temporarily relieved that at least Bank of Ghana from 1st of July 2026 is no more spending on GoldBod as it used to be. But then, the program that GoldBod is implementing now ought to be brought to Parliament, because Parliament approved their budget. It ought to be brought to Parliament. It's an entity where government also spends money, and that is why the Auditor General audits them. They ought to bring the program to Parliament to see whether they will be implementing the program as they have stated. And then from time to time, they also need to report how far they have come to Parliament. It is not a few times you just, we implemented this and we have made a profit of this, a profit of that. You ask yourself, so if you could make a profit of the 75 million Ghana cedis that you are talking about, why do you allow Bank of Ghana to incur a loss of 22 billion Ghana cedis on your behalf? Clearly, we ought to look into this. This is not about GoldBod coming out with insults. We want them to elevate the discussion. Tell us their side of the story. The insults will not let the $1.7 billion loss go away. It will not let it go away. Rather, it will tell on you the kind of leader you are. Come forth, tell us if there's something, some support that government needs to, come up with to help you manage the place to make profits throughout the year. You should let us know. But so we expect the conversation to be elevated. We expect some transparency. We expect some accountability. And not contradiction in numbers as is being put out there. So President Mahama, somewhere last year, you engaged the SOEs, and then you mentioned that SOEs that are not making profit or SOEs that are not thriving, you either close them down or you merge them. So we want you to walk the talk. Look into GoldBod. Look into the losses that they have incurred so far and see how best you can salvage the situation. We want you to walk the talk and help save the little resources that we have. Already, you've introduced more than 8 new taxes and it's still not yielding the revenue numbers that you want. So if there's an opportunity to save some money and use it in other equally important places, we are all for it. And we ask that you do so. Thank you.
If said Memuni na Otina Hoko Bo na dream Kikas ansem na Bank of Ghana Governor Kayano any sa in Semna Bank of a CEO of Ghana GoldBod Koya na, because this is a tantamount to a lot of punishment. This is Ghana